I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about, was my ex being honest with me?
This is a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah, especially around the breakup, where people are constantly wondering if the reasons that their ex is giving them are honest, or they're just telling them that. What's going on there? Because a lot of times it's confusing and it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But we've been doing this for a long time, so we know those little nuances, and we hear little patterns, and we hear little things that make our ears perk up and say, okay, the BS detector is on.
Sniff it out.
And so, you know, when you're going through a breakup, exes tend to kind of hide things. They keep things from you. Sometimes it's because they don't want to hurt you. Sometimes they don't want to tell you the truth because if they do, you might want to repair things. And so it's like, well, if I fix these things, then we can be together. So they don't want to tell you those things. Right. So then you can't fix things. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're not self-aware enough to even know what the real reasons are.
That's true too.
They might find other little excuses or things that bother them, but it's not the core as to why they really want the relationship to end.
Yep. So we're going to evaluate an email coaching today that I thought you guys would like. This one is from a guy in his mid-30s, and he lives in the United States, and his girlfriend is in her mid-20s, and she lives over in Europe. And I won't say where, keep it a little more vague, but she lives there, okay? Now, they met in another country last year, and so they dated about a year. He said with his job, he works insane hours for about 6 months of the year. But the other 6 months he has off. So that would be a really unique career. Mm-hmm. 6 months, insane, you don't have any time for somebody. But the other 6 months, you're completely available. Talk about two extremes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right? So it's like somebody you're dating might be able to handle one extreme,
right, but not the
but
other.
Not the other.
It's probably going to be like dating two different people within a year.
It really would be. So he says, our relationship was going pretty well considering the distance. Then, a few weeks before I was supposed to fly to her country, she told me she cheated on me. So right as she tells him a couple weeks before that 6-month period where he was free, he's like, I'm finally going to be free for 6 months. And by the way, I cheated. Ugh. Brutal, right?
I am glad that she did tell him weeks before he got there. I think it would have been much better that she told him sooner rather than him showing up, then finding out, then being stuck in this different country after having made that investment. He had a couple weeks to kind of figure things out if he wanted to cut things off then or not go and not invest into that travel.
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad she told him. But, you know, sounds like that 6-month period where he was working those insane amount of hours, she couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. I told her she had to block the guy and she has to start therapy to fix the reasons why she did it. Sounds pretty understanding.
Yeah, it does. And at this point, he's setting up some boundaries. He's trying to protect himself, but he still seems invested enough in the relationship to give it a go. Mm-hmm. Which for many people, that alone would have been a deal breaker. Now, we also don't know the extent of the cheating. Mm-hmm. Did she have unprotected sex with somebody, or did she kiss somebody, or was she flirting? We don't know.
Yep. The reasons that she gave was that she was scared of loving me, being in a relationship, which didn't make any sense to me then. It now does with what I know about avoidance. We spent the next 5 months together traveling all over the world.
I want to pause right there too, because it sounds like she is somewhat self-aware to know that part of the reason why she cheated was because she was avoiding a deeper intimacy with him. Maybe she was afraid of what that would really mean for them to have a relationship together. However, I also wonder if she was able to take accountability and show empathy for him, or if she was just saying, I'm avoidant and that's why I did this.
Yeah.
We never want to use our attachment styles or our issues, our emotional issues, our mental issues as excuses for our behavior. When we hurt somebody regardless of why.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that we have to take ownership of that.
That's a great point. He said there were some big fights. Probably one big fight with yelling every 2 to 3 weeks. So what's going on here? I think we're going to find out real soon. Here we go. The reason for this was that I was growing resentful of her cheating and didn't feel like she was working on herself enough. So he had forgiven her for the cheating, or at least said, you got to work through this. And I think that was completely fair and reasonable to say, I'm not repairing this unless you work through this and, are kind of accountable for what you did here. But now he's getting angry because it's not up to his standards of what she should be doing.
Right. And it also seems like there is some residual hurt there.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was an expectation or even a hope of, man, I can just put this beside me. We can continue the relationship like normal. Mm-hmm. But it seems like all of that emotion is spilling out. One thing that I really appreciated about Margaret is that she had some controversial views on forgiveness. In our day and age, we're always pushing this positivity mindset. You have to forgive, you have to move on, you have to think the best of people. Margaret would say,
you don't have to forgive them.
she would say that.
You don't have to forgive anybody.
Exactly. She would say forgiveness is something that people jump to sometimes and they skip anger.
Yeah.
And anger is such an important part of healing. Anger is that self-protective emotion that lets you know when somebody steps on your face. That's exactly how she would say it.
That's right.
So I'm wondering here if he shoved down some of that anger to make the relationship work, and now it's spilling through the cracks.
Well, not only that, he's not working, so he's spending all this time with her. And when you have too much time with somebody, you kind of don't appreciate them as much. When you have that space apart here and there, it allows you to enjoy coming back together. Mm-hmm. But if they're traveling around the world, traveling is stressful, he's angry at her, little things are getting on his nerves, and he's probably blowing up at her.
Oh, yeah. And people really do undermine the power of space when you are angry. Mm-hmm. I know when I'm angry, I don't want anybody to touch me. I don't want anybody to look at me. Leave me alone. Mm-hmm. Right? And so here, if he is experiencing some anger because of her unfaithfulness and is now with her 24/7, yeah, that's going to come out.
Yeah, and if they're traveling too, with the stress of traveling,
can you imagine?
Going through the security, getting on the plane, all the packing, unpacking, whatever's going on there.
Yeah.
Brutal, right? I know I was wrong for this and accept total responsibility. Well, I think you have every right to be angry at her for cheating, and if you feel like she's not working through her issues enough, I think you have every right to be angry about that as well. So I don't think you necessarily were wrong for being upset. Maybe in how you handled it wasn't the healthiest, but I think the anger is healthy.
And I'm also curious if her bringing up the cheating before he did travel with her was maybe an unconscious effort for her to separate from him.
Good point.
I'm thinking if she was a little bit more secretive about it or didn't want him to know, was trying to preserve the relationship, it might have been different. I don't know if she told him in a way of, take it or leave it. I don't care how this impacts our relationship or not.
Yeah. She tried to break up with me 4 months into the trip, but I begged her not to and give it another try. She reluctantly agreed. We had a great time for a few weeks. Once we got back to the U.S. and she went back to her country, she broke up with me. She was crying a lot and said it wasn't fair that she had to do it twice. I don't know if she means the breaking up or another 6 months of him working with the crazy hours again.
I was under the impression that she meant the breakup.
Okay. I didn't fight her on it, and I apologize for not being able to be the one who ended it because I loved her too much. She said that she was ending it because she didn't see a future with us, since she didn't want to move to the United States, and she didn't want to do another season of missing me for the 6 months. 2 days after the break, and that's a real reason. I mean, if she did the 6 months the first time, and then they had issues, obviously. Then the 6 months that they're together, they're fighting and big fights. She's probably thinking, now that he's going to go back to work, I don't want to do another 6 months of not seeing him or hardly talking to him again.
Yeah, I don't blame her for that either. It is an intense schedule and one that does impact a relationship.
Yep. 2 days after the breakup, I reached out. I told her that I have a friend who makes good money working on boats. This friend could get me a job that would allow me to live anywhere in the world. As such, I was planning on leaving my job and getting into it, that I would be happy to move to her country to be with her. So now you're thinking, the issue's gone.
Right.
I'm not going to do that anymore. Forget the 6 months apart. I'll go to move to be with you.
And now his effort and investment in the relationship has skyrocketed. And I know many of you are watching this thinking, okay, this girl had cheated on him early on in the relationship. He's continued to try to work on it. He wasn't seeing any improvement in her. She tries to break up with him not once but twice, and he is still willing to make this work. I know many of you are thinking, what is going on here? Like, where is his self-protectiveness? Where is he getting angry and saying, this is not fair, this is not right, I don't deserve to be treated this way?
Yeah, he should have. But, I think she kind of had processed it for herself and was just like, this is too much. We're fighting all the time. She mentally prepared to end it. And so at that point, she was kind of resolved with it. And the pushing and these problems aren't going to be a problem anymore, it wasn't having any effect on her.
Right. Yeah.
She said the breakup was hard, but that she felt like she had made the right decision for herself right now. You will see from the screenshot that she asked about a drug test. We had done some drugs while we were traveling, and I had a drug test once that I got back I had passed. I'm not a habitual user, and I've never taken anything while I'm working, meaning those 6 months where he's working. It was just when we were in another country, and we thought we would give it a go. That was 19 days ago, and we haven't spoken since. I believe she has avoidant tendencies. She wanted an open relationship, and she obviously cheated. So now we're hearing another big component. She wanted an open relationship.
And this, to me, triggers a lot, because I'm thinking, is her request for an open relationship a way to de-escalate what they already had? Because it sounds like she's bringing it up, wanting to meet other people, wanting other people in her life. Does that mean she's wanting the same level of commitment with him and eventually sees a monogamous relationship and a future where they do live together in the same country, or not? This to me is a big shift into what are our goals as a couple? What are our values as a couple?
Yeah, this is a huge change. This is a huge difference in where this relationship is going to go. She also stated a few times that she didn't feel ready for a relationship. However, she was always really good at making time to speak to me and always responded to messages quickly.
And this is another part of it, is that if she's saying that she's not ready for a relationship, why would she suggest an open relationship, which generally takes a lot more communication, generally takes a lot more managing multiple people's emotions? It seems like she's just trying to find some way out of this, is what I'm getting.
You could be right. I have anxiety, attachment, and fear of abandonment issues. Since the breakup, I've been talking to a therapist with 25 years experience. We talk every 4 days and message in between sessions. I realized that our relationship had a lot of issues, and I have really been beating myself up over all the mistakes I made and taking ownership for them. I'm doing everything I can to be better, such as therapy, working out, and talking with a lot of friends. However, I am still totally in love with her. I get the distance isn't ideal, but I would move to be with her. Based on what you know, realistically, what are my chances of getting her back? How should I respond when she does reach out? I understand that I need to move on with my life, and getting her back could take months, but I'm prepared to be patient and disciplined. What are your thoughts?
I feel sad that he's beating himself up. Honestly, listening to this story, it seems like a lot of the mistakes were on her end. You know, her being unfaithful, her kind of communicating that she's not fully into this or not really seeing much of a future. You know, and I can see him kind of holding on for dear life here, even sacrificing some of his own needs and wants. I do think that this is also a point for him where he might be realizing how his career choice can impact his relationship, thinking about who out there could work with this type of dynamic. Could it be maybe somebody else in a similar field who understands this kind of extreme schedule? Could it be somebody who has a schedule that's very flexible and adaptable to where you could spend time together and really grow a relationship? Or maybe switching careers into something that allows you more time to date, to really invest in your relationships might be an option for him. So those are just some things that I would explore if I were him.
Yeah.
It seems like the job part really did impact their connection.
I think it did too. But, you know, obviously she's a lot younger. I think she's in her mid-20s, and he's in his mid-30s, correct? And, you know, if she's at a place where she feels like she wants open relationships, then that's a very different thing than a committed relationship. Now, is she being honest about that or not? Is there some, you know, kind of excuse there to, you know, just end it and make it seem like it's easy? Or does she really want an open relationship? Or maybe she doesn't see it as committed to a bunch of people, but we both date whoever we want. And maybe she's just articulating it differently.
What I find here that's interesting is that he is answering to every one of her concerns. You know, you were concerned about moving to the U.S. I'm flexible. I can make that adjustment. So it doesn't seem like these were things that she had brought up to him, like, I'm concerned about this. How can we work this out? She had said, I've thought about it. We're ending it, which is a very different type of approach.
I think she was enjoying the time with him, and as the fights continued, once that 6-month period was ending and she knew it was going to kind of end, she was kind of planning for, like, this relationship to end once he had to get back to work. And maybe she didn't tell him that, but she was kind of thinking, well, once he goes back to work, I'm just going to end this and move on. So I think that's kind of where she was at too.
It's a possibility. You know, I wish that there could have been more communication on her end as far as what she was going through or some of her thoughts. But it also does seem like with how he has responded to every time that she's attempted to make a split or attempted to show her hesitance, he's gone above and beyond. So I can see that being a little bit overwhelming, and maybe that's why she just came to a place where she's like, I need a clean cut. I'm not going to be receptive to any other attempts to fix this because her decision is made.
At this point, you know, it's hard to say if she's going to reach out. I mean, it could go either way. I guess it depends upon how truthful she was about the breakup and what she was really thinking or feeling about things. But, you know, it's tough to recommend him moving to the other side of the world to be with somebody who already cheated and give up a career. I mean, I don't know how interested he is in that career for a new career when it's already so much instability here. He needs to see that she's really committed and invested before making this kind of investment to her. That if he does these things, she is going to do whatever she can to make it work for him to make such a big move like that.
I agree. I think at this point, it's his turn to set up some standards, to have some requirements, to have some, you know, hopes and expectations about her behavior in the relationship, her effort, her investment.
Because he would be moving to a place he doesn't know anybody else. You know what that's like.
So yeah. And a lot of times I will tell you that the partner of the person who moves to a different country So if you are from that country, you are established, and you have your partner move to you, a lot of times that person does not understand the sacrifice that it takes to leave your support system, to leave your family and friends back home, to completely change the course of your life to make a relationship work.
Yeah, and I would think that if you don't really feel like they're truly appreciating what you've done, it would make you start to grow angry and resentful.
Oh, yeah. In addition to her already having this history of being unfaithful to him, which who knows where he is in processing that.
Yeah. I think he's been pretty forgiving here. And while I'm sure he had a big part in them fighting during that 6 months together, she had obviously done something to violate the relationship that caused a lot of his hurt and anger. And then on top of that, he felt like she wasn't trying to really correct that and make up for that. So I could see why he's angry.
Yeah. So I hope that he really does hone in on that anger as an important part of the process through this healing, through this breakup. And I hope that he can gain some different perspective here. It's a possibility that she reconsiders things in some time, but I want to see her take some accountability.
That's right. Be very careful with picking up and moving across the world to be with somebody who's shown you that they're not really committed to things and not really being faithful. I'd want to see somebody like extremely committed and loyal and faithful and doing everything that they could to get me to come there before I'd even consider something like that.
Right. Please, please, please protect yourself. Because if you do decide to do that, you are putting yourself in a very emotionally vulnerable place. Without the people that, love and support you, you only have her. You will become a lot more dependent on her. And if her behavior continues, if she does cheat on you again and again, this can be an endless cycle where you're dependent on somebody who's hurting you. So we don't want to see you in that position.
No, definitely not. All right, so hopefully this one has been helpful to you guys. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on our website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you're ready.
Just click on her name to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.